While Fex was growing up, he had always been told humans were weak creatures. They had to rely on others' power to survive, but after seeing Leo, he could tell this wasn't true, or at least what they used to know about humans no longer applied. Before heading up to the stage, Fex looked around the room and spotted Erin. To his surprise, she was standing right next to Quinn. "He didn't already make her his, did he? But how? My charm didn't even work against her," Fex said. "Still, it doesn't seem like she's been blooded by anyone. Maybe I can still use her." The group caught Fex looking over in their direction. The next thing they noticed was a cheesy wink with a smile. Seeing this, they all wondered who the wink was directed at, and cringed a little inside. "That wink wasn't towards you, was it?" Layla asked, thinking it was meant for Quinn. "I guess," Quinn replied. It had to be at him, he thought. He was the only one who knew who Fex was, and he was looking right at them. Although the wink was directed at Erin, she had no clue of this either. In fact, she could hardly remember seeing the boy. The only thing she could remember was the embarrassment she had to face in front of that cheesy guy, and her face would heat up. "Maybe he has a thing for you," Layla said. Layla's words had jolted Erin's memory, and she remembered where she had seen the boy before. "This guy was the reason for my utter embarrassment," she thought to herself while biting her lips. This guy caught her in the library reading a particular book. "Yeah, that has to be the reason," Erin said nervously. She felt like the wink must have been a sign. Perhaps he was planning to use it as blackmail against her. Tell everyone that she read those types of books. If others were to find out, her family even, she would be shamed for having such a dirty mind. She needed to keep the boy silent no matter what. Now, Fex and Leo were up on stage, and even Quinn was a little excited to see the outcome of the match. He had fought with both of them and pretty much lost. Still, he was unable to get either of them to show their full strength. "Hey, Quinn," Layla whispered. "Is he a vampire as well?" How did you know? Quinn thought. Unless she had a nose like his, Fex looked just like every other human. "Well, you've been acting strangely ever since he got in here, and you did tell us someone attacked you last night, right? Well, who do you think is going to win?" she asked. "I'm not sure. I was just thinking that myself. If it was just hand-to-hand combat, I felt more useless fighting against Leo. Not only that, but Leo has years of experience. I just can't see a student beating him." Layla then went to have a closer look at Fex. He did indeed seem young, the same age as all of them. "Well, if it's like the books I've read, vampires can live for a lot longer than humans. Some of them are eternal, so maybe he looks young just because he wants to." "Is that true?" Quinn asked the system. "Yes, vampires can slow down the aging process, although there are methods to do this. A vampire can either go into eternal slumber. It's a method they use to stop their heart beating and everything inside their body. In a way, it's a near-death-like state. The only way to wake a vampire from eternal slumber is to have them take a drop of blood from the same family. During this period, they will not age, and their body will not deteriorate. The second method, well, let's just say the second method isn't very nice." Quinn had long learnt if the system didn't want to elaborate on any details, even if Quinn asked, it would choose to remain quiet. It made him wonder just who was able to create such an advanced AI, to the point where it seemed no different from a human. No technology that he knew of was able to do that yet. "Well, if this vampire is a lot older than he looks, then maybe he and Leo will be evenly matched," Quinn replied. "I doubt that," the system added. "The boy in front of you, I don't have any memory of him in our records, and the way he acts would also suggest he has a young mind. If I was to take a guess, he should be no older than you." Watching this fight would be an excellent insight for Quinn. He still had no idea how strong other vampires were, and this would be his first look at another one for him. Leo got into the same fighting stance as before and moved his fingers, telling Fex to come forward. Unlike Quinn, Fex didn't rush ahead and walked calmly over. Then, when their fists were a touching distance away, Fex got into a fighting stance of his own. When looking at the two, their fighting stances were quite different. Leo had both hands out in front of him, similar to karate or a little like boxing, while Fex had both hands down by his side, but his knees were slightly bent. Slowly, Fex was circling Leo. The tension was high, not knowing when either of them would attack. Fex was the first to strike. He came in throwing his fists in quick succession, two to the head and then another to the body. However, just like before, by using his palms, Leo was able to knock them away. He could block them, Fex thought, but I only pulled back on my speed a little. I was sure from watching the match earlier this would be fast enough." After blocking the attacks, Leo followed up with a kick aimed toward Fex's head. Seeing this, Fex jumped back and tried to grab the leg, but at the last second, it seemed like the angle had changed, causing Fex's grab to miss. "Again! It's like he knows what I'm going to do!" Fex inwardly was starting to get annoyed. Then, while bringing his leg back, he was able to catch Fex on the head with the heel of his foot. "He didn't use that against the last student," someone from the crowd said. Touching the mark on his face, Fex smiled. "Looks like I need to bring it up a notch." Fex went in and did the same, throwing punches rapidly only this time. In the same amount of time he had thrown 3 to the head and 3 to the body. Leo was able to block the first 3 and the second 2, but the last one had gotten in and hit him in the stomach. He felt the powerful blow that had the weight of a hammer, but didn't let it distract him from throwing out his sequence of kicks. The fight now continued, with no breaks in between. While one focused on their fists, the other focused on using their legs to attack. They would block each other's strikes while hitting each other once in a while. "Ha! I don't know what Father was talking about. They aren't weak at all." As the fight continued, Fex got more excited, and he started putting more power into his punches. It got to the point where it was power beyond a regular human with no ability. Leo could feel this, and could sense the energy inside him getting wilder. At first, he thought he had never seen such a fighting style or martial art before, so Leo decided to lead him on, hoping he would reveal everything he had, but perhaps he had played with the boy too long. While looking at his energy grew wilder and stronger, it started to remind Leo of the Dalki, and this soured his mood. It brought back specific memories. He started to remember that there was one time he had faced something similar. It was a Dalki. Usually, the Dalki were reckless when they fought, but the toughest opponent Leo ever had to face was one which knew how to use martial arts skills, and right now, the resemblance was too close. Why did this boy's fighting style seem similar to the Dalki's? Leo thought. So far, the fight had shown an amazing set of skills from both of the contenders. Leo had displayed some techniques that he hadn't used in the battle against Quinn, making him realize how much better Fex was at fighting. However, Leo felt like he had allowed the fight to go on for too long, turning Fex into an overconfident lad. Although he was banned from using his abilities, Leo's was slightly different compared to the others. His ability was always on. He needed it since he used it as a type of vision for himself. Since he was blind, he would constantly activate his ability to see the aura of living things around him. In turn, this also allowed him to see the flow of energy in his opponent's body. When an opponent attacks, their energy flow would move before the body of the person did. This was the same when a person used their abilities as well. If Leo concentrated by just a half, he could change his vision to almost a bird's-eye view, being able to sense all those around him. It was thanks to this skill that he was able to survive countless near-death situations during the war. However, even if others were to have this ability, it would be useless in the hands of someone unable to exploit it. Fex threw out stiff and straight fast blows with the fist, but knowing what he was going to do beforehand, Leo was able to block all of the attacks. "What? But I was sure I increased the speed quick enough so he wouldn't be able to block it," Fex thought. Then, when Leo prepared for a kick, he could still see where Fex was planning to dodge. Using his other foot, he was able to shift his weight and change direction. It landed right in Fex's face, but Leo didn't stop there, since he knew the damage was minuscule. He continued to kick in rapid successions, aiming for where Fex would be at each time. "Can he read my mind? What's going on?" Fex asked himself out of frustration. Even he was unable to comprehend what was happening. When the kick stopped for a breath of a second, Fex thought he had finally gotten a break, but before he could do anything, another kick was aimed at him from above, an axe kick which slammed down on the back of his head as hard as he could. The blow was harder than Fex thought it would be, so he was unable to prepare himself in time. His legs gave in, and his head bounced off of the ground. He laid there, lying lifelessly on the floor. "Did Leo just kill him?" a student said. "Isn't that going too far for a simple student?" Before Leo himself had realized it, he had been too consumed by his past memories. It had affected his usual clear mind. However, he knew the student was safe since his aura was still burning brightly. Fex slowly started to get up, pushing his body up with his arms, with his nose slightly bent. "Unfortunately, I didn't expect to meet such a skilled student, hence I might have taken the fight a little too seriously," Leo said. Just think that you were lucky. If I was using a sword in this match, you wouldn't be alive." Standing on the sidelines, Quinn was a little worried. This loss might have hurt Fex's pride, causing him to go on a rampage. If that happened, he didn't know what to do. But then, Fex's next action surprised him. "Thank you for the battle, teacher. You have taught me how useful your martial arts truly are," Fex said as he bowed down and walked off of the stage. "Wait," Leo said. "Please tell me, where did you learn to fight like that?" Leo had wanted to fight Fex after realizing that he and Quinn carried the same aura. Quinn excited him by showing amazing growth each time, and he had expected Fex to be the same. Yet, Fex was different. He was a few levels above Quinn. "As you can see, my ability is only level 1. My family has always been weak, so we decided to train in the form of martial arts to help build a good foundation," Fex answered. After hearing this, the students quickly remembered that Fex was only a level 1. When they witnessed how good he was at fighting, some of them had the idea of recruiting him for the next portal outing. Still, no matter how skilled he was at fighting, it wouldn't help him against beasts. Unlike Leo, who had the power of the beast gear helping him, they all felt like Fex could never obtain a piece of equipment that high in level. It was a strange situation. He could be useful if he had high-level equipment, but he would have to be strong enough to get the high-level equipment in the first place. The only way they felt like Fex could move up the ladder was to swear loyalty to a faction or the military, helping him raise his ability to the point where he could get the appropriate gear, and only then would he become someone who would be a threat. Of course, Fex's ability wasn't level 1, but due to the watch being unable to detect a vampire's MC points, it displayed level 1. As Fex walked back to the crowd, he quickly snapped his nose back into place. He also had bruise marks all over his body, but they would soon heal, so there wasn't much to worry about. With the 2 demonstrations over, it was time for Leo to start the class. Everyone was asked to spread out so they would have space of their own in the room. The first thing Leo started to demonstrate was the kicks. He proceeded to demonstrate different types of kicks one by one, and the rest of the class would follow step by step. It felt a bit awkward at first, and most of the students who had never done such a thing found it quite difficult. However, Quinn's body was more flexible and agile than most, allowing him to perform the moves quicker and learn them faster than the others. Leo could see this, and once again was impressed with how Quinn was performing. Then, when he looked at the other person he was interested in, he felt a little disappointed. Fex had decided not to bother learning the kicks properly. It wasn't because he thought they were useless or not helpful. He just found out firsthand how good the techniques were, but it was because vampires were very traditional. If they were to alter their arts or try to use something else, they would not be happy with him at all. While performing the different sets of kicks, Quinn started thinking. While punching, he was able to combine the blood spray with it. While throwing his fist, he used the blood swipe. Perhaps there might be some way to combine the blood swipe with his kicks, creating a new skill of his own, although he would have to wait to practice this on his own later. Leo had demonstrated a total of 3 different kicks. One was the roundhouse kick, which was a kick that came out from the side. The other was using their dominant foot. Then they also had to practice the kick using their subdominant foot. The third kick was the axe kick performed at the end, lifting the leg upward and then down using your heel to hit the enemy. Once he had finished demonstrating all the kicks, it was time for them to test them out against each other. Leo asked the group to get into pairs and spar with each other. However, they were only allowed to perform these 3 kicks with each other, while only blocking using their legs or dodging. This was Quinn's chance to approach Fex, as he could see he was all on his own, since no one wanted to pair up with him. It was clear from the start that no one would want to go up against Fex, and this time it wasn't just because he was a level 1. He had put on an impressive performance, and it was clear that if they were to go up against him, they would stand no chance. If they lost to him in a spar, a level 1, they would become the laughingstock of the whole room, and the incident would spread throughout the entire school. Seeing this, it was Quinn's chance to approach Fex. He was in a public place with students loitering around, so he wouldn't be able to try anything funny, and if he did, for whatever reason, go out of control, there was one person in the room who could deal with him. That was Leo. While Fex was looking around the room for Erin, he noticed that she had already teamed up with Layla, and had lost his chance to get close to her. Although he noticed a smell gradually coming towards him, one he was familiar with, the other vampire in the room. Fex was still unsure who exactly was this person, but to be sent to the base on his own, he would have to be a high-ranking member of their family, or maybe in a similar situation to Fex himself. The other crazy thing, though, was he didn't know who Fex was himself. One of the possible heirs to the 13 families, someone nearly all the vampires knew. But some were sent on missions from a young age who had yet to return, so it was understandable if a few people had never seen him before. For those reasons, Fex had decided to offer a helping hand, hoping not to sour the relationships between the families. The families didn't usually get involved with each other's business unless the head elder asked. Hence, he was careful not to be nosy. "I guess you already know what I am," Quinn said while looking at Fex, keeping his fist closed, ready for things to turn at any second. "Do you know who I am?" Fex asked. Thanks to the system's inspect skill, Quinn did know. "Fex Sanguinis, correct?" When Quinn answered, he was unsure what to say at first. If he said his name, would Fex get suspicious of how Quinn knew? "Fex Sanguinis, correct?" When Quinn answered, he was unsure what to say at first. If he said his name, would Fex get suspicious of how Quinn knew? Or would they think they were comrades? It was a risk. Quinn had no clue how many vampires there were, and how close of a relationship each one of them held with each other. Still, this way, if he did ask how he knew his name, Quinn could make up a type of lie. In the end, he chose to reveal the vampire's name as the system advised him to do. "Quinn, I'm warning you right now. Never reveal your family name to another vampire. If you do, they will target you," the system said. "But can't he use his inspect skill as well?" Quinn asked. "That is unique to the system, Quinn. You are not an ordinary vampire. The others don't have this kind of system like yours. This whole thing you are going through, you are the first person to experience it. This is why I can't help you as much along the way. There are still some things that I don't know about the system." Quinn started wondering about the skills unique to the system, and what are the skills all vampires knew of. "Well, it's to be expected. I thought maybe my fame was starting to die around the other families," Fex said, swiping his hair back. "Well, it's clear you're not from my family, otherwise you wouldn't have attacked me yesterday, but I won't pry into your business, because that would just be rude of me. Anyway, go ahead. It seems you didn't approach me for no reason at all." Quinn was struggling with the decision of how much information he should reveal. If he made one type of slip-up, then it would reveal the position he was in. "I remember you saying that if I needed any help, you would offer your hand." Quinn then took in a deep breath. "I need you to help me with the ghoul problem, the one that you captured the other day." Fex then smiled. "I thought as much. I see. Perhaps a vampire recklessly transformed a human, huh? And then left you a halfling or lesser to deal with problems. Who would be so irresponsible to turn someone into a ghoul without preparing everything beforehand?" It seemed like Fex was coming up with his ideas about why Quinn was here, which was a good thing. It meant that Quinn didn't have to come up with his own story and could just stay silent. In doing so, Fex was the type of person who thought his guesses were right on. "Judging by your silence, I'm pretty close, aren't I?" he assumed as he started laughing. "When I become the family head with my genius brain, our family will rise to the head position." "So, can you help me?" Quinn asked. By simply looking at Quinn's face and seeing his fighting skills the other day, Fex could only surmise that Quinn wasn't well trained, or just wouldn't amount to much in the future. This contradicted his earlier thought, though there was something else that was bugging him. He had seen Quinn use his shadow ability. It was an ability that other vampires hadn't used in years. It suddenly gave Fex an idea. Sooner or later, he would be caught by his family and be sent back. He knew this was the case, but if he could lighten his punishment in any way, this might be his chance. If he asked Quinn about the ability, of course Quinn wouldn't tell him. All the families thought the ability had been lost. Looking at Quinn, it was clear whichever family he worked for were keeping it a secret. Perhaps trying to overthrow the head family. If Fex was able to get information from Quinn, how he got this and which family he belonged to, then perhaps the punishment he would receive would be lighter. But the greed was starting to grow inside Fex. Observing Quinn's ordeal and the fact that the ghoul yesterday was in a crazy state, he needed his help. Maybe he could get even more out of this deal. "Of course I can help you," Fex said. Those words gave Quinn hope. The sooner they dealt with Peter's situation, the quicker they could get on with their lives. "But I do have one condition," Fex said, looking over in the direction of the two girls. "You see, the one with the golden hair? All I ask is for some alone time with her." As Quinn turned his head, he knew straight away who he was talking about. It was Erin. "Why? Why her? Why can't it be someone else?" Quinn asked. Quinn felt that, perhaps, Fex would need someone to give him a supply of blood while he was here, just like Layla was to him. Otherwise, every 2 days, he would starve with hunger if Fex was the same type as him. But it didn't sit well with Quinn that it would be someone he knew. Out of all the people he could have selected, he chose his acquaintance. "If you need blood, I can provide it to you," Quinn added. "Oh, don't worry, I have no problem obtaining blood, although it would be nice to have a little blood pet. I promise you that if you just agree and let me meet and talk with her, then I'll help you with your little ghoul situation." "Are you going to hurt her?" Quinn asked. "What? Are you crazy? Of course not," Fex replied. "So, what will it be?" "There's no way we can trust that guy," Layla shouted. Currently, the whole group had finished their combat classes for the day and were inside Quinn's room. He had just informed them all of what had happened yesterday when he had rescued Peter. He also included what had happened in the combat class and what Fex's request was. "I hate to admit it," Vorden said, "but I kind of agree with Layla on this one. What is another vampire doing in this school in the first place? Is he here because of you, Quinn, or maybe Peter?" "I don't think that's the case. Honestly, he seems to be disinterested in me. He also said something that he wasn't meant to be here either. I don't know if he was telling the truth or not. Maybe he was trying to get me to reveal myself." Quinn felt like pulling out his hair at this moment. There were so many things running through his head. "I wish there was like a manual or something on how to be a vampire. They have so many rules I just don't understand." "The thing is, I can understand if he wanted you or Peter, but why Erin? It doesn't make any sense." Vorden shook his head. Inside the room, Erin had been here the whole time, silently listening away. So far, she hadn't said a single word, as if her mind was someplace else. "I have no clue about it either. All I know is he said he wouldn't hurt her," Quinn replied. "Hey, I have a question," Layla said. "How come when you're in the sunlight you get weak, while he doesn't? Is he some kind of special vampire? Because when we left the training hall, he seemed to be walking fine." Quinn also noticed that as well, and while looking at Fex closely, he noticed a ring on his finger. He knew instantly that it was the same ring from the shop. It was a ring that required you to defeat a total of 10 advanced tier beasts to obtain. It only caused Quinn's worries to grow. It was clear that even if he didn't ask, none of them were powerful enough to stop him. While the others were thinking about what to do, Vorden pulled Quinn off to one side so they could have a private conversation with one another. "Hey man, not to add to your worries or anything," Vorden started, "but I think we've another problem you should know about," Vorden said. Vorden then went on to explain how a few of Duke's men had come up to Peter in their training session, and how they had asked him to learn the level 4 ability by the end of the week. It seemed like everything was happening at the worst possible timing. "Then we have no choice," Quinn said. "We don't know if Duke is going to keep a closer eye on Peter or what he plans to do. If we don't get Peter off this new diet as soon as possible, then we might have a serious problem on our hands. If it's about trusting the vampire boy or the Duke, I think right now I trust the vampire more." "You might be right about that one," Vorden replied. "But the problem is, how do we convince Erin?" As soon as Vorden had finished those words, Erin stood up straight and placed her hand on the hilt of her blade, which was currently sheathed by her side. "I'll do it. I'll go see this," Erin said. "What? Erin, you're not thinking straight. He's a vampire. He could be planning to do the same thing to you as Quinn did to Peter," Layla shouted before pausing. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean that in a bad way. I'm not afraid of him. That needs to learn his place. He needs to learn not to mess or blackmail others ever again," Erin said. The others felt a little touched. It seemed like Erin had changed, as if she was fighting for their sake, something that she had never done in the past. But little did they know, Erin was still the same as always. When she was talking about blackmail, she was talking about her situation. She was afraid that if she didn't go through with this, there was a chance that Fex could tell everyone about what she read. She regretted giving him an easy time when the two of them were at the library, and now wished she had taught him a lesson, and now this time she would. "Don't worry, I'm confident in my skills. If I was to lose to like him, then I deserved it for not training hard enough." Erin's stubborn side had shown, and at this point, Layla was the only one trying to convince her to not go, while the boys remained silent. Even Peter wanted to get this whole thing over with, and if Layla just had to become a vampire's blood bank, then it was a small price to pay. Peter had to do worse things than that right now. "I think it'll be fine. We shall meet on the roof," Vorden explained. "The three of us will wait by the door to make sure no one else comes upstairs. If anything fishy happens, we can come out and help her." "Do you think he'll be okay with that?" Peter asked. "Didn't he say he wanted to meet her alone?" "The two of them will still be alone, and we will just be a short distance away. If he truly says he will do her no harm, then he should at least accept these conditions," Vorden explained. A plan had been set, although it wasn't a very good plan. It felt like it was the only thing they could do at that moment. Quinn had left the room to go meet up with Fex to set the meeting point tonight, while Erin wanted to go to the practice room to brush up on her skills before the meeting, but before she left, Vorden stopped her by holding her hand. "Sorry, I'm going to need to say this," Vorden said. "Listen to me, Erin. If you need any help or anything, you come running to me, all right? I promise I won't let this guy get you." "Vorden, you are the only trustworthy one in this group. I would never rely on any of the others to protect me." Erin still believed Vorden was the best option out of everyone out there. She had seen him get serious and even beat a student from one of the big four. Although Quinn was powerful, he had too many weaknesses an enemy could exploit if they were to find them out. "What the hell? Why doesn't he treat me like that?" Layla asked in disbelief. "Am I the only one he treats like... What the hell did I do?" Vorden had grown close to his circle around him. He had never had this many people close to him before, and Erin was one of the very few people who had approached him first. He didn't want to upset this little family he had subconsciously created. Unfortunately, Layla got the short end of the stick due to the little misunderstanding about the relationship between Quinn and her. Vorden then went off with Peter to gather the strongest abilities he could find, first heading to find Berg and one other ability. It was a calm day. It wasn't too hot, and it hadn't rained in a few days, so the ground was dry. Quinn stood there opposite Fex, behind the roof door. The door was slightly open as the four of them peeked to have a look at what was going on. Erin's hand was twitching as she had it hovered over her sword's hilt. The others had to do everything in their power to convince her not to go out there and start a fight straight away. They were interested in what Fex had to say, and if she was to go out with her head full of steam right now, it would ruin everything. The best option for them was to come out of this with no fighting. If that did happen, Vorden was prepared. He currently had an ice ability, a fire ability, and also a slow regenerative ability. While trying to get the ability, it took him longer than he thought, since he couldn't find the original person he got it from last time. Luckily, at the last moment, he was able to find another student with a similar but weaker version of the ability. He needed to make sure to keep the regenerative ability in case things didn't go to plan. If Fex didn't have a solution, then once again he would have to prepare himself to remove another body part. It was also unlikely that he would be able to get Syl to fight for them anyway. At most, Vorden could convince Rayton. Syl was unreliable, so Vorden never went into a fight relying on him. "So you understand the terms then," Quinn said. "We will be waiting just on the other side of that door, and if anything happens to her, we will—" "I know," Fex said with a yawn. "I already gave you my word, didn't I? You should already know a vampire's word is sacred. It's something that cannot be easily broken." "And about the ghoul problem, you promise you'll help us straight after, right?" Quinn asked. "I already have it sorted," Fex said confidently. "Just a fair warning, she knows what you are, so she will be cautious," Quinn replied. "Looks like you're breaking rules all over the place," Fex said. "I guess it isn't a problem if you plan to turn her eventually." Fex had never seen a vampire break all the rules so casually. There was only one person who was as daring as him, and that was Fex himself. Most vampires were boring and strict, very traditional in the sense, and had been so for many years. It was why Fex yearned to go to the human world. The more he was finding out about Quinn, the more his interest grew. But with his position, he could get away with a few things here or there. While Quinn had never seen him before, he felt like the more he stayed around this guy, perhaps more interesting events would start to unfold. Quinn had done everything he could, but it was still hard for him to trust Fex. Even the system didn't seem to have a solution to the current problem, so he just wondered what Fex had that they didn't. As soon as she opened the door, Erin was ready to head out in his place. "Erin, please remember the plan," Layla said. Erin nodded and then headed straight out as the other three watched from behind the door. At first, Erin walked slowly, but as she got closer and closer to Fex, she started to walk faster. The closer she got to him, the more annoyed she was at seeing his face. "Oh, the beautiful Goldilocks has finally come out. I have a proposal for you," Fex said. But suddenly the walking turned into a jog. After hearing Fex's voice, the anger inside her only got worse, and then finally she had enough and pulled out her sword. "I thought I had already warned you. If you were to mention what you saw in the library, I would teach you a lesson," she shouted. "Looks like she isn't sticking to the plan," Layla said. "The library? Have these two met before?" Peter asked. "It seems like there might be a bit of tension between the two that we didn't know about before," Quinn added. "Damn it!" Vorden shouted. "She's going to get herself killed." As Vorden went to open the door, Quinn pulled him back. "Just wait, Vorden. If he wanted to harm her, why would he do it in front of us? And if he did kill all of us here, then he would only be hunted down by the school." What Quinn said made a lot of sense to Vorden. Still, he couldn't help but worry. Hearing Erin's words, Fex was a bit confused. He could tell she was angry, but apparently it had something to do with their last meeting. Wait, it couldn't have something to do with that book, could it? As she charged forward, her face had now gone bright red once again, and she pulled out her sword, but suddenly her movement started to slow as she felt something wrapping around her legs and arms. When she looked at Fex, she could see him doing something with his hands. "That's it, I'm going to save her," Vorden said. "Wait!" Peter shouted. "That's the same thing he did to me. I don't think he's trying to hurt her." The string-like substance continued to tangle all over her body. When Erin looked around, she noticed that there were small little daggers placed around the roof, with a little ring on top. Finally, she was completely restricted and could no longer move. Erin was not at the level where she could use the ice abilities with just her mind. She still required small movements with her hands to activate her ability. She would need to be at least a level 7 ice ability user for that. So right now, she was completely defenseless. Other than her weapon, she had no other piece of beast gear on her, so her strength was that of a regular person, so there was no way for her to break the strings around her. "You know, after you left, I read that book myself. No wonder you got so heated up," Fex remarked. "If you would like to do the things mentioned in that book, I'd be happy to help you." "That's what I get for being nice," Fex said. "Anyway, hear me out. During my time here, I need a puppet as well as a food source. Now, since you decided to punish me in the library, you have the grace of becoming both of those things." "Quinn, do you understand what he's saying?" Layla asked. "I have no clue. I mean, I understand the food part, but the puppet thing I have no idea," Quinn replied. "System, is he talking about turning her into a vampire?" Quinn asked. "No, the Sanguinus family has the ability of string. However, their combat style is unique. They are extremely nimble and skilled with their fingers, but their actual combat powers are lacking." Hearing this didn't make Quinn feel any better. If Fex was a vampire lacking combat skills, then what did one with good combat skills fight like? To perform at the best of their ability, they need something called a puppet to do combat for them, while they control them behind the scenes. Fex then walked up behind Erin, while walking a selective path towards her, avoiding all the strings attached to the small blades he had thrown. "I'm not becoming your puppet," Erin shouted. "I'm afraid you don't have much of a choice," Fex replied, as he stabbed 12 needles in her back. As the 12 needles were implanted into Erin's body, a strange feeling started to overcome her senses. It was as if something had clicked in her brain. The strings that were binding her feet and hands were loosened and started to disintegrate until they were no longer holding her back. "What did you do to me?" Erin asked. "I wanted to show you what being my puppet means," Fex replied. Erin went to swing her sword and moved about, yet it seemed like her movements were back to normal. They weren't slow and everything, so she tried to do what she could do before. Still, she felt like something was tugging at the back of her brain. "Whatever you did to me, get rid of it now!" She lunged forward and swung down her sword. However, as she did, Fex moved a single fingertip, and concurrently, the course of her sword changed, missing the target and merely swinging to the side. "My body! Did it just move on its own?" It was a strange feeling for Erin to suddenly lose control like that. "Let's see what you got!" Fex shouted. He was now moving his fingers at an incredibly fast speed, and for every different action that he did, it would move Erin's body. At first, Erin tried to resist and fight against Fex's control, but it felt useless, as if she couldn't do anything. When she soon realized that there was nothing she could do, she stopped resisting and just went with the flow. Doing this, she started to realize something. Fex wasn't just moving her body about in a random order, but he was performing a certain set of moves. Her swordsmanship was faster and more skillful than before, and the sound of her strikes upon sliding through the air sounded fast and harsh. While her movements were soft and flexible, as if she was dancing, it was swordsmanship that she had never seen before, one that surpassed her basic skills that were unrefined. While doing these movements, she started to concentrate. She discovered that it wasn't as if the strings were pulling her along. She could still feel that her own body was doing all these movements, so it must have been possible for her to perform these as well. Right now, she was noting down all the action she was performing, and when she had gotten the hang of it, shards of ice would leave the blade as well. "What is Erin doing?" Layla asked. "I thought she would be attacking him, but she looks so beautiful." With the ice surrounding her, along with the beautiful skills being shown by Erin, it was as if they were all watching a performance. "I don't think it's her look," Vorden said as he pointed at Fex, who was at the back, moving his hands and fingers. "You're a lot better than I thought you were going to be," said Fex. "It looks like I was right to choose you." When Fex had seen enough, he detached the strings that were on Erin, and she suddenly stopped right there. Her body was no longer being guided by the strings. Immediately, not wanting to forget the feeling she just had, she tried performing the same movements. At the start, it seemed to be going well, but then, the movements just didn't have the same flair as when she was attached. She tried again and again, like a person who was possessed, but it was nowhere near the same level that she was performing before. "You! Show me again! Do what you just did again!" Erin demanded. Now, Fex said, "if you started to demand things from me and I complied without complaints, it wouldn't be very fair, would it? A relationship should work in two ways." "If you don't want to tell me about it, you know I can just start getting nasty." Lifting her hands, Erin planned to use her ice abilities this time before he got close to activating his weird puppet thing once again. But her hand stopped midway as a little tingling feeling reappeared at the back of her head again. "Oh, I'm afraid it's a little too late. You see, with the needles implanted in you, I can reattach my strings to you at any point in time," Fex explained. "Now that I have shown you how my swordsmanship works, it's time that I get something in return." Walking towards the lady, step by step, Fex got closer, and right now, there wasn't a thing she could do to stop him. "I can't take this anymore. It's not fair on Erin. We forced her into this, and it's clear that she doesn't want to go through with it. What if he's planning to turn her? I'm going," Vorden said as he barged through the roof door. "Wait!" Quinn shouted. They were so close that Quinn didn't want to ruin the deal they had. So far, he had stayed true to his word, and Erin didn't have a mark on her. He felt like he was so close to solving the problem with Peter, but after hearing Vorden's words, Quinn realized how selfish he was being. Erin had no reason to be involved in their affairs. None of them here did. Only Peter and Quinn needed to be there, and if he wanted to solve his problems, he should have come up with his solutions, instead of trying to rely on someone else. As soon as he heard that Fex had a plan, he immediately decided to take the easy route of asking him, rather than trying to brainstorm for an appropriate method. "Let's switch, Vorden. I'll teach this guy a lesson," Rayton said. "No, they're my friends, and this time I'm going to do something about it myself." As Vorden ran out, he gathered a fireball in his hands and was getting ready to throw it toward Fex. However, just as Vorden was about to let the flames go, Erin's body had moved and was now right in front of him. She slashed her sword down, and Vorden had to jump out of the way, rolling onto the floor. "Vorden, that wasn't me," she said. "How dirty!" Vorden shouted. "You're going to use her as a shield? Why don't you fight yourself?" With Erin getting in between the two, Vorden was unable to use his full strength. At any point in time, Fex was able to move her to either block the attack or get in between the two of them. Then, a gust of wind seemed to go straight past Vorden as he felt his hair rise. When he looked in front of him, he could see Quinn running past with all his beast gear on. He had his boots activated and was rushing forward at full speed. Just like before, Fex moved Erin in front and commanded her to strike her sword, but Quinn showed no signs of slowing down, and it looked like he wasn't even going to bother dodging. "Shadow control!" Just before the sword reached his side, he lifted the shadow from underneath his foot and blocked the attack, slowing it down. Then, using the flash step, Quinn was able to appear behind Erin and went straight for Fex. "Wait!" Fex shouted. "Stop! This wasn't my intention. You guys win," he said as he held up both hands. Just what was Fex planning? With his arms raised, it truly did look like Fex had already surrendered. Not only that, but Erin was freed from her constraints. She could finally move by herself again. As soon as she felt the weird connection leave her body, she had decided to take a few steps back, and was now standing near the door beside Peter and Layla. "Come on in, Quinn," Vorden shouted. "With the two of us, we can easily take this guy out." However, Quinn was still cautious. He had no intention to let his guard down. He remembered fighting Fex last time, and also saw him go up against Leo. If Vorden had seen these things, perhaps he wouldn't have been as confident as he was right now either. "There is no trick," said Fex. "You can ask the girl who I have broken off the connection with. I have done what I wanted to do. All I wanted was to show the girl what would be like if she was to become my puppet. I just presented the power and skills that I would share with her, and in return, I was going to ask for some blood. Did I do something wrong?" Quinn then pulled out a flask from one of his trousers pockets and threw it over to Fex, who was able to catch it. Fex opened up the lid and could smell the sweet fragrance emitting from the bottle. "If you need more blood, then you can just come to me," Quinn said. "Just leave us be, and I won't get in your way and obstruct your mission, so you shouldn't get in the way of mine." Fex then gulped blood from the flask as a huge grin slowly made its way to his face. "Wow, it's pretty fresh, but as I told you before, getting blood here isn't a problem for me. Look, I didn't want to sour the relationship between us two. As I have said, this is all a misunderstanding. Did I ever hurt her?" "You took control of her body and you forced her to attack me," Vorden said. "Just get rid of whatever you put into her body. In that way, you won't be able to control her again." "Looks like I've hit a nerve there. I didn't realize she was already taken," Fex said. "As fellow vampires, we should be looking out for each other. As a sign of our friendship, I shall do as you ask and remove the needles." Quinn was wondering why Fex's tune changed so quickly. Before, it seemed as if he was ignoring him, and now he wanted the two of them to be friends. It just didn't make any sense to him. Could he have realized that Quinn was different from the other vampires? But the real reason why Fex had changed his mind about the whole thing was because of Quinn's shadow abilities. He had seen them being used before, but didn't see much of what they could do. During the short confrontation with Erin, he noticed something about the shadow, and how it was possibly a lot stronger and more useful than he thought. "If he goes through with the process, will you be able to tell me if he does anything suspicious?" Quinn asked the system. "Not really, but Erin should be able to tell. When the needles are removed, she should know," the system replied. The group decided to go through with it, but only if they could stay by Erin's side. At first, she wanted Fex to use it on her once more, to allow her to experience the feeling and skills he had shown her again. However, after fighting against her comrades, she felt disgusted with herself. She was so weak at that moment, and everything had been done against her will. Even she wanted the needles to be removed. Erin's back was facing against Fex, while the others stood by her side, with Layla holding her hand. Peter, Vorden, and Quinn were ready to jump in at any moment if he was to do something fishy. The strings were connected to Erin once more, and she felt the tingling sensation at the back of her mind. Fex then yanked out his hand, and at the same time, all 12 needles that were attached to her body were pulled out simultaneously. "It's done," Fex said. The others saw the needles had been removed, and Erin could no longer sense a strange feeling inside her body. "If you ever wish to become my puppet again, feel free to find me." "Come on, let's get out of here," Layla said, as she started to walk off with the others towards the exit. "Wait, don't you want help with your ghoul situation?" Fex asked. Quinn had thought, since Fex hadn't got what he originally wanted, that there was no reason for him to keep his side of the deal. His words right now were a surprise to him. "I may not follow many of the vampire's traditions, but I do follow one, and that's to always keep my word. You did as you said, and you brought her to me. Now, in return, I will help you." The girls started walking ahead. Layla had decided she didn't want to be part of this anymore, and it looked like Erin was worn out by the whole thing. If the boys wanted to go through with the original plan, then she trusted Quinn to make the right decision. "We can't trust this matter to him," Vorden said. "I'm telling you." But time was running out. It was night, and they didn't have much longer until the curfew. Vorden would have to go through the pain of having his limbs removed again. Also, so far, Fex had kept all of his promises, so why would he suddenly break one now? Please, Quinn said, help us. Very well, Fex replied. Follow me. As the three boys followed Fex, they couldn't help but wonder what kind of plan he had. He said he had prepared everything beforehand. Quinn was thinking of all the possibilities. Given how young Fex was, and how the system hadn't recognized him, it was clear that the two vampire minds were a generation apart. This means, perhaps, some things had changed that even the system didn't know about. Maybe in this period, they were able to find a substitute for the human flesh. Whatever the plan might have been, it had to be better than letting Peter kill people randomly. As they followed Fex, they realized that he was leading them back to the student dorms, until finally they had reached a room not too far away from theirs, located at the end of the hall. It was the last room. I hope you're hungry, Fex said as he opened the door. As soon as they entered the room, their jaws had nearly dropped to the floor. Quinn immediately looked out in the hall to see if anyone had seen them before closing the door shut. What is the meaning of this? Quinn asked. Currently on the floor were 7 different students who had been tied up. They each had a blindfold around their eyes and a piece of cloth gagging their mouths. Their arms and legs were tied up using the same type of string that had been used on Peter. This is what someone should have done before they turned him into a ghoul. I noticed he is a crazy ghoul, so he shouldn't need much human flesh to evolve. He would need a different type, right? So here you are. I brought you a different person he can eat for each day of the week, Fex explained. Quinn realized then that it wasn't that the system didn't have any way and Fex did. It was the fact that they were 2 different types of vampires. The system knew that Quinn would never consider this an option, so it never suggested that. While Fex, even though he was interested in humans, saw them just as a thing to be used. So what, you plan to just kill these students? Vorden asked. The school would find out if 7 students just went missing. This isn't a plan. Hey, now look who's being the stupid one. No one said anything about killing, Fex replied. The size of meat that a ghoul needs to eat only needs to be about that of a shoe. So there's no need to kill, no need for the school to find out. But won't they say something happened? If I was them, as soon as we leave, I would get out of here, Peter said, worried as he saw the students wriggling, scared for their lives. Although you guys seem to be friends, it's like you don't know much about vampires, do you? Fex shook his head. If I use my influence powers, then I can make them forget anything ever happened. As for their missing limbs, I can replace them with a memory saying they lost them in an accident fighting with each other. While Quinn was thinking of different ways to help Peter, he too had come up with a similar option. The only problem was, Quinn wasn't confident in his influence skills. Whether it worked or not depended on 2 things. The person he used it on should have a weak mental strength, and his charm stats, which were low at the moment. If there was a chance it didn't work, then Quinn would have to kill someone with his own hands. The killing wasn't the part that Quinn didn't like, but killing someone who had done nothing wrong or no harm to him was different. These people in the room were strangers to him, and they had families waiting for them back home. Who was he to decide what happened to them? If he was to abuse his powers, then he would be the same as the very people he hated. Well, Quinn, what do you want to do? Peter asked, looking at him. Peter had already made up his mind. He was sick of worrying about this and just wanted to get it over and done with. He convinced himself if he didn't at least resort to this, then there would be more body bags, and a missing limb was better than a body bag. I can't, Quinn said. I don't even know these people that well. Quinn's reply surprised Peter, as he was sure Quinn had felt the same way, as if he just wanted to find the quickest solution. If it makes it easier for you, some of these people aren't good people. Fex then went over to 2 of the male students off to the right side and lifted their heads, revealing a few bruise marks on their faces. You see these 2 here? They were my roommates. As soon as I entered the room, they started ordering me around. I refused, and you know what they tried to do? Beat me. So I gave them a beating back. I hadn't even said a word to them yet. What about the rest? Quinn asked. Well, the rest were randomly selected. They just had bad luck, that's all. Look, someone had to draw the short straw, right? While Vorden was looking at the students, he recognized one of the female students. It was the same girl who he had copied the regenerative ability off the other day. Now it made sense why he couldn't find her earlier. It must have been due to Fex keeping her in this room. Seeing this, though, gave him an idea. Quinn, there is something we can do, Vorden said. Vorden explained how when he was coming up with Plan B, he managed to get a list of the first-year students' abilities and what class they belonged to. On this list, it stated that out of all the first years, 3 students had regenerative abilities. Before, he had never considered this an option. Only now that they were able to erase their memories did he think of this. "There's still a problem," Quinn said. "Even if we manage to get those 3 students, we still need 2 more." "But at least it's a start, Quinn," Vorden replied. They explained their plan to Fex. After all, they needed him to make sure he erased their memories. Although he complained a little, he did accept it in the end. He then lifted the female student off the ground, who had regenerative ability. "I'm telling you guys, we could get this all over and done with. Are you sure you want to do it this way?" Fex asked. Quinn nodded in response. "All right then." Fex then pushed the female student towards Quinn, and he managed to grab her just before she tripped and fell over. "This is your problem, not mine. I'm not going to do everything, so one of you is going to have to cut off her body part. I'm not a sicko who gets pleasure seeing people in pain, so I'm afraid I'm not going to volunteer myself." The boys started to discuss who was going to cut off the limb, since none of them were ready. Vorden knew firsthand what the pain was like, and argued that he had already done his part, while Quinn was the one who cut off Vorden's leg. In the end, it was a unanimous decision that Peter should be the one to do it. He had similar strength as Quinn, so he should be able to cut it off clean. Peter grabbed the meat cleaver from the kitchen counter and walked over to the female, all the while Vorden and Quinn held her down on the floor. This time, they had also put several towels where the cut was supposed to be made, to not make a big mess like the last time. The two had to hold her down, even though her mouth was already gagged. Furthermore, she was blindfolded, but she had heard the whole conversation going on between all of the people in the room. At first, she thought it was a twisted, sick joke being played by her friends. But as soon as she heard them deliberate and talk more about the matter, she slowly realized that it was becoming a reality. Not being able to see anything either was making her go mad, as she imagined that they might do all sorts of things to her. As Peter kneeled on his knees, his hands were shaking. Quinn and Vorden were strong, so now her movements were minimal, but it didn't stop him from seeing the tears rolling down her face, just underneath the blindfold. "Come on, Peter," Vorden said. "You're happy enough to eat the damn thing, but you can't cut it off." With those words, Peter closed his eyes and swung the meat cleaver down, but at the last second, he tried pulling it back, causing the meat cleaver to only reach halfway through the bone. Muffled screams were heard as blood started to pour down her leg. "Peter, you made it worse," Quinn said, as the two swapped positions. Quinn quickly banged a fist on top of the cleaver, pushing it to completely go through. When the leg was detached, he quickly put it inside a black plastic bag. Using one of the towels, they tied it just above the wound and raised her leg to cause the blood flow to slow down. Eventually, it had healed to a point where it was a stump again. The woman was no longer struggling or screaming. She had just passed out from the fear of everything. "4 more times," Quinn said. "We have to do this 4 more times." While the female's leg was being prepared for Peter to eat, Vorden was busy tending to the girl and clearing up the bloody towels. However, before Peter could eat the leg, Quinn went over and dipped his finger into one of the ends. "Blood type A positive." Quinn wanted the O blood type. This way, he would be able to raise his charm stat. He realized that with everything happening around them, they were bound to get caught sooner or later. If that was the case, then one of the most useful skills that he had would be the influence skill. It was why Fex was able to walk around so confidently and didn't have to worry about getting blood. He was confident about his ability to raise the memory of any student regarding that incident ever taking place. It didn't take him much stronger in the battle, but it would in the future. If he could use his influence skill without any worries, then he would also be able to get blood from other students without having to worry about the repercussions. He then licked his finger, and once again the message appeared. "A positive blood has been consumed. An additional stat point in strength has been added. Strength 18. Peter wasn't feeling hungry at the moment, so the leg this time didn't look as appetizing as before. He thought that it was because he had seen the girl screaming and crying right before it was cut off. Because of that, he didn't feel like eating it just yet. While the others were waiting for the leg to heal and for Peter to start eating, Quinn went over to the other 6 students who were still on the ground. "Inspect." Quinn had used his inspection skill on each of them, and the main thing he was looking for was their blood types. Out of the 6, there were 2 O-negative blood types, 1 AB positive, 1 A positive, and also 2 B positive blood types. While he was here, he might as well increase his stats. The memory of each student would be wiped by Fex anyway, so it would be a waste not to. Quinn then went over to get another knife from the counter and went up to each of the students. He would make a small cut on the bag of the student's calf. He would then dip his finger and take a lick of each one. After taking a drop from each student, Quinn decided to check his new improved stats. Strength 19, Agility 18, Stamina 17, Charm 12. At the moment, these were Quinn's current base stats without wearing any equipment. With the two O blood types, Quinn did as he said he would, putting them into his charm stats. While doing all of these tasks, Fex was keeping a close eye on Quinn and couldn't help but come over. "Are you trying to see which one tastes the best?" Fex asked. "If you want, I can get you a glass or something so you can have more." No need, I'm not hungry." As Quinn said those words, he realized that this was the first time he was talking about blood with another vampire, as if it was food. It was strange, but at the same time nice that he didn't sound crazy. "I was just trying to get as many different people's blood types as possible," Quinn answered. "You're a strange one." "Oh, I know, I bet you're one of those blood freaks who has to find the perfect type of blood," Fex said as he shrugged his shoulders. "To me, blood is just blood. It all tastes the same no matter who it comes from." Hearing Fex say this started to make Quinn think. "Did you have any of their blood before we came here?" Quinn asked. "Nah, I can last quite a while before I start to crave blood. Although I still appreciate the gift that you gave me before," Fex replied. A realization dawned upon Quinn.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.